Welcome back to the wonderful world of haircut blender frenzy. As you can see, my hair has been cut and it feels amazing. I couldn't believe how long it's been since I've got a haircut. So, yes, I went in, got my hair cut. They were very safe about it. Everybody's wearing masks. You had to wait outside, go get something to eat like I did, and wait in the parking lot till they come and they call you, and then you go in. I don't care how it looks. I actually think it looks good, but if you don't think it looks good, I don't care. It feels great. Okay, enough about the hair. This is Blender Frenzy. I am Justin, by the way. In this video, we are going to be talking about texture extraction, and I need to give a thanks and a shout out to CGMatter, who is the one who I heard this from, and I just drooled over it the first time I saw it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. But his tutorials are really stinking fast. They're good, but they're fast. So I wanted to make a tutorial about this and slow it down a bit so you can kind of see some of the concepts and follow along. And this is also going to play out in the next video where we do the same thing with our toilet paper. So this one, we're going to kind of take a step back, look at the concepts, and then apply it in the next video. So I'm going to open up a new instance of Blender, delete that default cube, go into top view, come up to view, go to align view, and align active camera to view, or just use the shortcut. I can select the camera by selecting the border of the camera here, or I can select it in the outliner. Come down to camera properties, add a background, and then add an image to the background, open, and then open up your image. For this one, I'm actually using an image I got off of Pixabay. I'll leave a link to it in the post so that you can download it and follow along if you want to. So I'm going to come down here to our background image area where it says alpha. I'm going to pull that up to 1, and then depth back, and then frame. Let's pull this out just a little bit here. And I realized I forgot my screencast keys, so I'll be right back. Okay, back with you with these screencast keys, and we're going to move on here. So I've got the alpha at 1, depth at back, and frame method at stretch. Then I'm going to come up to our overlays, uncheck floor, and then uncheck our axes and 3D cursor, just so that we can see this a little bit better. Okay, so now this image is being stretched because our original image here was 1920 by 1280. And if we come over here on our output, our resolution is 1920 by 1080. So we just need to change this to 1280. And there we go. Now our image is set to the appropriate proportions, aka aspect. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to extract some textures from this image. And I'm going to start with this cupboard here, these doors. So I'm going to add in a plane. And then I'm just going to move that plane over to those doors. And then let's zoom in here a little bit. And going to, actually, let's just do X-ray mode there. I don't want my box select on. I want the tweak select so that I can just click and drag these straight away and just start moving those around. And I'm just going to position them around these cupboard doors or cabinet doors, whichever way you say that. Okay, so now that's lined up. Let's go over to our UV editor, aka workspace, and we're gonna have to do the same thing. So we have to go into camera mode and then change this to tweak, and then undo the floor and the axes, or not undo, or hide them, because you have to do that in every workspace individually, which is a bit tedious, but oh well. So let's reposition here. Okay, and I also move my big head out of the way so that you can see more of what's going on, and I don't cover anything up unawares. So let's enable our X-ray mode, and then come over to our UV maps here. And you see we have a UV map already created for us automatically when we add it in our plane. So if we select everything here, you can see our UV map right here. And our UV map is just a basic unwrap that stretches to the boundaries of the image, and it doesn't matter how big the image is. So if we add in a new image here and then title this placeholder and then full, because this will be for the full image. So I will make this 1920 by 1280, and we don't need the alpha, and okay. So let's scroll out, and you can see those UVs stretch to the boundaries of this, even though we've resized it. And that's exactly what we want. So this will be our flat UVs that we want to paint onto. So I'm going to rename this to flat. Okay. And so we're going to paint onto this for the final one, but we want to paint on from a projection. So we're going to duplicate this, and then we're going to name this projection. And now with our projection selected and our plane placed where we want it to, we're going to unwrap it by pressing U and then select project from view. And now if I scroll out, you can see these two images are the same size, 1920 by 1280, and then our plane is placed at exactly the same spot with our UVs. So this is where our UVs are. And proportionally, they are identical, which is exactly what we want also. So this will be our projection, and then we have our flat, which is the boundaries of our image. But for now, let's make sure our projection is selected and it's the active render. Let's come over to our texture paint, and we're going to have to do the same thing here again. So 0 to go into camera view. Let's disable our floor or hide our floor and all of that stuff there. And then let's zoom in just a little bit here. And now what we want to do is make sure we're in our active selection. Our mode is single image. And then let's select our placeholder. Oh, okay, so I just realized that it's kept the other one that I meant to delete. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is what you should have now. So go ahead and choose your placeholder full and then reposition here. And so we have kind of the same thing that we had in our UV editing here with our proportions the same. And we're going to paint onto our placeholder full with our projection UV map. Now, instead of painting with a color or painting with a texture using a stencil, we are going to clone from an image. So press the clone button here and then come down to clone from paint slot. You can see under brush settings, and then open that up. And now you see source clone image. And this is where we can choose our image. And we're going to choose our Pixabay image, which is what you see here. By the way, Pixabay image to shout out to Solomon Rodgers, who is the person who took this picture or uploaded it or whatever. The rights belong to him, but is open source for free and commercial use as you desire. So thank you so much, Solomon, for your generosity. But anyway, so we are going to clone from this image, and we're going to paint it onto our placeholder full, and we're going to use our projection UV map, which is here, and then project it onto this projection map, which is here. So our source is down here, and our destination is up here. Let's just go ahead and close. I think that's all the things that I can close here. So source is at the bottom, the destination is at the top. This is our source, this is our destination, and we can go ahead and start painting. But before I do that, I want to change my fall off to something stronger, something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and start painting. And ta-da! Now we have extracted our cupboard doors here from this image and then pasted them onto the UVs here in our placeholder image. So that is simple texture extraction. But we're going to take it one step further, because what we've been doing so far is using our projection to paste onto our projection. But in order to truly extract this texture, we want to take from our projection and paint onto a flat image to turn it around and make it face us instead of having the perspective that it has in the image. So to do this, I'm going to create a new image, and then I'm going to title this Placeholder TXT for texture. And then we're going to do 512 by 512 and no alpha and OK. So now we're going to take our cupboard doors with this shape and paste it onto this image. So the source doesn't change. We're still using our Pixabay image, and we're still using our projection UV map. But what we're pasting onto is going to change. We're going to select our placeholder image, which is this image here. And then instead of projection, we're going to use our flat UV map. So we're actually going to be pasting from our projection to our flat. And be careful which one you choose here, because if you go back to your active tool, you're going to have to probably change it back here again. So change this back to flat, and our source is from the projection, and we are good to go. Again, our source and our destination. Our source and our destination, and let's just start painting and see what we get. And ta-da! We now have truly extracted this texture into one of our own textures. And I don't know if you can notice, but you have some like artifacts kind of going on up here and on the edges. And if you kind of go around the sides of the edges, that'll take care of it. But what I've seen happen is if I do one side, then it messes up the other side. So, yeah. So the way that I found to fix that is if you come down here to your options and then where it says bleed 2 pixels, I'm just going to type in 0 there. And now when I start painting these edges, it doesn't have an effect on the other opposite edges, which is good. Usually things like this take me like 2 weeks to figure out. And that one actually just took a couple minutes because I was like, huh, bleed. Well, it's bleeding, so might as well just try that one. Okay, and then when you're done with your texture, you can save your image, but we are not done yet because there's still a little bit of warping going on that we need to fix. And it's not that apparent in this one, but if we do it again, so let's come over to our layout and let's duplicate this down here. And we're going to reposition this just like we did with the cupboard doors up there. And I'm going to bring down my X-ray here just so that I can see a little bit more of what's behind there. Okay, so now let's go to our UV editing and select everything. And here you want to make sure that you don't override your flat UV map because I've done it. You're going to do it probably. I did it while I was practicing for this tutorial. It's just something that you forget. You forget that you have this selected. If you have this selected and you press U and unwrap it, it's going to override this. And then you'll have to reset that. So what I'm going to do, a couple things. First, I'm going to create a copy of our flat. So just flat, and then we're just going to call this flat BK for backup. And then we'll just hide that there. And then I'm going to select my flat and make sure it's intact. So I have a little saying, make sure your flat is intact and your projection is selected. Flat is intact and projection is selected. Okay, so with our projection selected and our flat intact, we can U to unwrap and project from view. And now you can see it projects that from view just like we would expect. And now let's go to texture paint. And just for demonstration purposes, let's go up to our destination and let's just go to our placeholder full again and make sure our source is the same, which it is, projection to projection. And let's just up this a little bit and we're just gonna start painting. And so there we go. We extracted it just like we extracted the top cupboards. So now we're going to switch our destination from placeholder to the texture one and from projection to flat. But before I start painting, I want to resize this to make it a little bit more of the shape of the bottom ones here. So as in November, to open up that tool, you can see what I'm pressing. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and discard this one just so that I can change the size here. So I'm just gonna mess with the size and bring down the Y so that it's more roughly in the shape of here. I'm not too concerned with the actual dimensions of it, but I'm just kind of eyeballing it there. I think that's good enough. And now I think we're ready to go ahead and start painting. So I'm going to paint. And ta-da! We now have our texture. Let's quick get these edges here so that they're not creating artifacts if they are. Okay, but now obviously you can see there's some warping going on. And the reason for that is we don't have enough geometry. Projection mapping needs to have a little bit more geometry than just one plane. So let's go to our modifiers tab, make sure our plane is selected still. Go to Add Modifier and then Subdivision Surface. And then now you can see it's having an effect, but we don't want it to lose its shape. So let's click Simple here. And then let's change the render and the viewport to 4. And you can see what's going on if I go into wireframe. Now we have a lot more geometry to work with instead of just one plane. And the reason I'm doing it with the modifier is because I can always hide it, disable it, re-enable it. I can apply it if I want to, or I can just get rid of it. It's kind of like fake geometry because I can still go in here to edit mode and move these around just the points. And let's go into wireframe so you can see that. So you can see you have the geometry, the fake geometry moving around with the real geometry. But anyway, for our purposes, it helps us when we start painting, which is what we're going to do now. So I'm going to select everything and tab back into texture paint mode. And now let's start painting again. And as you can see, as I paint, it straightens everything out. Now, of course, I moved that corner down here in the bottom when I went in edit mode, and I think I messed that up. So let's go ahead and fix that here real quick. Okay, but now that I've changed my geometry, if you move your geometry around at all, you need to unwrap again. So let's select everything. And remember our motto, flat intact. Make sure flat is intact, and then projection is selected. Okay, and then you project from view. And now back in texture paint mode, we can start painting on this again. And it just painted down here because with projection selected, once we come into texture paint mode, we now have to select flat again. Okay, so now let's paint again. And there we go. Everything is flat as a pancake, as a square cupboard shaped pancake. So this one is ready to save. So I'm going to go to Image, save a copy, go to our materials and label this counter drawers. This can be a JPEG. And 75 is fine. Save image as. Okay, so let's do the same thing up here again. This one was the 512. Let's go back and do that. Let's just discard this because this is our placeholder. We can discard it since we've saved our image. So yeah, we want 512 here. And come back up to this one. Make sure this one is selected in object mode. And then add our modifier here because we didn't add it to this one yet. Simple. Render and viewport at 4. We didn't move any of this geometry, but I'm going to go ahead and unwrap it anyway, just in case. So tab into edit mode, come to our mesh properties, make sure our flat is intact, which it is, and our projection is selected. You unwrap, project from view onto texture paint workspace, and we do want the placeholder, and we want flat projection. Everything from the source should be the same because it should always be these two things. We're always going to be painting from this image and from our projection. Okay, so let's go ahead and start painting. And voila, beautimus. Okay, save a copy. And we'll say cupboard. Okay, so now that we have the technique down, let's try it on a couple more. So let's go to our layout and do a little bit of modeling. I don't know what accent that was. Don't pay attention to me. Okay. So I'm just going to duplicate this here, and you can see that if I bring that X-ray up just a little bit, and then go into edit mode. Okay, so I've tried to position everything as best as I can. I tried to avoid the edges too, just so that we don't have anything from the surroundings kind of bleeding in there. This glass case here with this candle, it's bleeding in there, but I will take care of that later. Okay, so let's go to UV editing and select everything here. Flat intact, projection selected, you project from view. texture paint. And for this one, we want to make sure our placeholder is roughly the same size, or shape, I mean, as that one. So let's bring those in like this, something like that. If you really want to be accurate, you can come over here to the transform and look at the dimensions. And right now we've got 0.7 and 1.34 meters, and then you can do the math and set them up here. I'm not going to be that accurate because I don't need to be right now. Okay, so now remember, in our texture paint mode, we have to go and make sure our placeholder texture is selected, which it is, and then projection, we don't want that, we want flat. Okay, and again, we're not going to change our source, so just start painting. Oh, not this one, this one. And ta-da! Just like magic, we have a little placard image that we can save. But like I said, I want to fix this piece of it here. So a couple things we can do is we can actually clone from the image itself here in the 3D view. So if we uncheck clone from paint slot, now it's just the regular clone brush. So let's resize this. And now I can pick any place on here to clone from, just like Photoshop or GIMP. If I press Control and then left click, it doesn't do anything, or seemingly doesn't do anything, but that's because I turned off my 3D cursor and it uses the 3D cursor. So let's display that again, and now you can see the 3D cursor is there. That's where we will be copying from. Actually, I'm going to do it down here on this edge here. So then I'm going to right on this edge, start painting. And that seemingly doesn't do anything either, but it is doing something. You can see over here. Why do I not see it in here? I think it's because, yeah, so you got to turn off X-ray mode apparently. So there's our clone right there, and then if I maybe clone from here instead, this part can get really tedious really quickly. Okay, there you go. We have now successfully cloned out that piece of glass. But that is pretty tedious, and there is a better way to do it, at least in this instance. So I am going to just go ahead and paint over that again with my regular clone from paint slot. Just paint, 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 paint. And we're going to paint that glass right back on there, you can see. And let's come over to our layout again so we can adjust this. Tab into edit mode, and then I'm just going to move this guy just like this right over there. So it's still straight from up and down, but it's just slanted a little bit to miss that glass. And of course, since I've moved my geometry, I need to re-project. So select everything, flat and tact, and projection selected. You unwrap, project from view. It's kind of like a little song and dance that you learn, a little ditty to help you remember. That is going to help me remember in the future. Projection to flat, and yeah, we're good to go. So let's go ahead and just start painting our new projection on. And ta-da, boom, voila, voila, however you want to say it. Cool, so let's go ahead and save this image, and we're just going to save a copy, and we're going to title this Be Still. Okay, so now that you know the technique, I'm going to do it one more time, and I'm not going to explain anything. You can just watch my workflow and see how easy it actually is. So, all right, I'm going to do the microwave over here. So I'm just going to duplicate that. Okay, so let's see what we've got. So of course we've got all of our textures that we did before for our UV map. And you can see we now have textures extracted from this image that we can use on our own 3D models. And once you know how to do it, it's actually really pretty easy. And so in the next video, we're going to use this technique to extract textures from a single roll of toilet paper from a single image, just like we've been doing here, and create one of these UV images here with it. So you'll see me in the next one.